Force, Tuck will give me the strength of 10 men.
Innerspace had viewers rolling in their seats. The movie had comedy, action, and the right sprinkle of romance. Behind this masterpiece are several behind-the-scenes moments undiscovered. Lovers of the movie wonder how the filmmakers brought this project to life. We'll answer all your questions with 20 facts you didn't know about Innerspace. Number 20. The first to step out of the analog world, Innerspace was first commercially released with an improved noise reduction system called spectral recording. It was an upgrade from the original noise reduction method used by professionals for many years. It was an analog recording medium, but it was all they had. However, Innerspace showed the world a new possibility with the Dolby Stereo spectral recording. It was a hit on video. It was one of the first big videos, and it was discovered on video, the movie director reported. Number 19. The Crazy Thriller. You would not believe it, but it's true. Some people almost missed this great movie because the poster was a flop. No, there's no exaggerating. The Innerspace promotion team seemed to be asleep on this one. There's no way that was their best strategy to get viewers to purchase their franchise. Thankfully, many fans saw past that and loved it. Tuck's character, Dennis Quaid, also shared his take on the poster and campaign for the movie. Although the audience liked it in theaters, the ad campaign was so terrible for that movie. It was just a giant thumb with a little tiny pod on it. You couldn't tell that it was a comedy. You couldn't tell anything. It had a terrible title, because we could never figure out a better one. The studio botched the selling of it. I mean, they liked the movie, and they tried to reissue it, even with a different campaign, and it still bombed. Despite the bad campaign, Innerspace was a thrilling ride for all who watched it. Number 18. Movie Awards. Innerspace has 2 Academy Awards. It also has 5 nominations to demonstrate its impeccable quality as a production. In 1988, the Saturn Award nominated it for Best Science Fiction Film. Joe Dante was also nominated for Best Director. The production quality was also recognized with a Saturn Award nomination for Best Special Effects. A year before these nominations, Innerspace was in the spotlight with a Golden Reel Award for Best Sound Editing. In 1988, it got its first winner, an Oscar Award for Best Effects and Visual Effects. Dennis Muren, Bill George, Harley Jessup, and Kenneth Smith were the incredible masterminds behind the effects. It was a time for their work to be recognized and appreciated. In 1994, the Guinness World Records awarded it a win for most Oscars won for visual effects. Decades later, the movie was still mentioned at the awards night. In 2009, it got a nomination by the International Film Music Critics Association for Best New Release and Re-Release of an Existing Score. You know what it means when every aspect of a film gains this much recognition. It is an epic creation. Number 17. Visuals and Effects. The awards for effects weren't just a consolation prize of some sort. It was a recognition of the effort and creativity put into the film. Innerspace was way ahead of its time. For an 80s movie, the effects are pretty neat. Do you remember the scene where Dennis's character wanders within the human body? That was outstanding. The audience could feel as much thrill and amazement as he did. You're used to seeing movies that create worlds in outer space, but it's rare to find one that attempts to explore the inner space. I'm sure you just understood why that had to be the title of this film. Yes, that's how the name came about. The movie script of Fantastic Voyage also inspired the name. The special effects were commendable for the time period in which they were created. Of course, we've seen better in this day and age. However, the equipment and sophisticated gadgets were not present during the production of Innerspace. Yet they managed to pull up a visual classic. How cool is that? The scenery looked like something out of a Walt Disney World attraction, and the special effects were top-notch. The producers paid attention to details and made sure they brought their best foot forward. In the scene when they shrank Tuck, the lab's instruments displayed a visual on the screen. It is 6 interlinked hexagons. The combined miniature deterrent forces also used this symbol in Fantastic Voyage in 1966. It was one of the sporadic VHS releases to be in widescreen in the 80s. Rob Bottin also worked with the crew. He provided the animatronics to achieve Jack's transformation into a cowboy. Number 16. The Experiment. Do you know Innerspace never spoke about the kind of experiment Tuck volunteered until the end? You would think that they would provide details on the main subject, but they somehow managed to get the audience to forget that vital information. All we know is that Tuck chose to go into a rabbit hole, hoping to return to his normal size after the experiment. What was the observation for? No one knows. Innerspace only reminds you to watch out for the vaccinations, and definitely don't ignore that little voice inside you. It could be a space pod. Number 15. The songs that got the buzz. Mark McGuiney delivered an unforgettable soundtrack for the 1987 masterpiece. Jerry Goldsmith's musical score for Innerspace will forever be remembered as a beautiful creation. Some fans watched the film to honor his memory when he passed on July 2004. Joe Dante also had sound effects lifted from the classic Warner Brothers cartoons, which are used multiple times throughout the movie. The Looney Tunes sound effects were the right choice for Innerspace. Number 14. The plot. It's definitely one of the funniest storylines you've ever heard. When we say the people of the 80s were great at comic films, best believe it. Here's how the story goes. A military pilot, Tuck Pendleton, volunteers to be shrunk to the size of a cell for an experiment. He was meant to be injected into a rabbit for observation, but things took a crazy and wild turn. Terrorists were after his scientific breakthrough. There was no way they would let that happen, so they launched an attack on his lab. It happened on the exact day and time of his experiment. He ended up being injected into the butt of a grocery clerk who was a hypochondriac. That's when all the suspense and drama began. From here on, the movie portrayed two characters in one body. Tuck was having the time of his life, while a panicking Jack Putter provided the audience with countless moments of laughter. He was a nervous wreck. Jack, who had no idea what was going on, had to work with Tuck to stay alive. A guy who thought he was sick is now hearing voices. He had to find a way to get Tuck out before it got too late. The plot takes the viewers on a journey of adventure. Number 13. Movie ratings. You already know it, right? With the attention the movie got, the ratings skyrocketed. It earned a 6.8 rating on IMDb. Grandmas who saw Innerspace at a tender age didn't even know any of the lead actors. Some of them had never seen Saturday Night Live. Attending that event and having the opportunity to screen such a great film was remarkable. It's a memory they will never forget. Decades and thousands of movies later, fans still think it's terrific. Warner Bros. First released the movie in the United States on a $27 million budget. It grossed $95 million. In the first 37 days of its delivery, it grossed $32 million. Some critics might not recognize it as one of the best movies of all time. Still, they cannot deny how entertaining it was. It gave them very fond childhood memories. As long as you don't expect a masterpiece and merely want to be entertained, Innerspace is your best bet. You know this movie was a great piece of art. Innerspace wasn't just about hilarious moments and adventures. It also brought a science feel that viewers were not used to. Number 12. Movie direction. Joe Dante's direction on Innerspace was excellent. It's his only film to win an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. The minds behind the story? Jeffrey Boehm and Chip Proser. Did you know Joe initially turned down the film because it was written as a science fiction spy movie? He already had a similar project, Explorers, produced in 1985. Innerspace caught his attention after the writers reworked it to be a science fiction comedy. Here's what got him hooked on the project. A writer said to him, "Imagine if someone like Dean Martin is put in a space pod, miniaturized into a syringe, and injected into the body of someone like Jerry Lewis." It immediately piqued his interest when he heard that, but that didn't mean he got the script. It was first given to executive producer Steven Spielberg. His first choice wasn't Joe. He offered it to another director, Robert Zemeckis, who declined the offer. Steven was left with no choice but to go with Joe, who gladly appreciated the script. That's how the production for Innerspace came about. It's a dumb, stupid comedy, which is exactly what people need in the summertime. It's very idiotic and I love it. We encounter every dumb, stupid cliché in the book. Leave your brain at home and you'll have a good time, Joe said. He confessed that Steven was the brain behind the comedy and also owed his success in the film to the producer. It was such a goofy idea that there were no limits to it. When Steven wanted to do it, Warner thought I was a god, and any amount of money it would take to do the movie, they would spend. Steve ultimately decided he only wanted to produce, so I went with the idea and we made a great film. Joe said his experience with Steven was unforgettable. It was a very filmmaker-friendly atmosphere over there. You have all the best equipment, all the best people, and all the toys you wanted to play with. Plus, you had somebody on your side who was also a filmmaker, and they knew exactly what you were talking about when you had a problem or you had a question. John Carpenter was also considered for the film as a director. Many people are unaware that he also directed Innerspace at some point. Joe began his directing career with producer Roger Corman. He worked on Frank Marshall's project, The Last Picture Show. After learning the ropes of the industry, he made his directorial debut, and the rest, they say, is history. Innerspace has been looked back on as if it were some great success. It's probably the movie that I had made up to then that was the closest to my intention. As a result, I was pleased with it. When I look at it today, I still think it's a tremendous amount of fun. Did you notice a copy of the 1983 Twilight Zone, the movie in one of the scenes? A mirror scene in Tuck's room captured the novelization on the table. It wasn't there for no reason. It wasn't a random book. Joe and Steven had each directed and produced a segment of the movie. Were movie stars promoting their projects? You could say so. There was also a gremlin in view on the side of the road. That was no mistake. Again, Joe and Steven wanted a display of something from their movie Gremlins 3. They had worked on it years before they handled the Innerspace project. Innerspace was their third collaboration. There was no doubt that they made a great team. The producer and director knew their job and had these same ideas. It was easy to work together. Number 11. Dennis Quaid in his finest comic role. Dennis Quaid played the role of the enthusiastic pilot, Tuck Pendleton. He is on a top-secret mission and surrenders himself for observation. When things went wrong, he ended up in the body of Jack. He embodied the role of the arrogant Tuck, who later comes to appreciate life after the crazy experiment. Innerspace was Dennis Quaid's internationally most recognized project. In a 2020 interview, he spoke about how it had changed his entire career. "I'll be down in India, and someone will come up and say, 'Hey, you're from Innerspace.'" In the scene where Jack has a drink and sings "Twistin' the Night Away," his dance moves were similar to those of a character he played in another movie. Well, actors never entirely get out of movie characters, do they? Dennis has played a pilot in 2 other movies aside from Innerspace. The first was in The Right Stuff in 1983. The second was in Flight of the Phoenix in 2004. Number 10. The highlights and favorite scenes. Innerspace ensured that it captured key scenes that contributed to the overall creation. It's why it became the fans' favorite scenes. There are no complete movie reviews without these highlights from Innerspace. One such scene was where Tuck and Jack got drunk off Southern Comfort together. It was complete chaos. Many fans wondered how much Jack drank. It was hilarious to watch him hiccup and stumble around while Tuck asked, "Jack, are you drunk?" Do you remember the scene where Jack first hears voices and yells, "I'm possessed"?
I'm not a man.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm possessed!
No.
It wasn't enough that the first scene in the doctor's office introduced him as a hypochondriac. He was another human being sharing his inner space. Fans found his reaction hilarious. If you are looking for a funny and cute movie, Innerspace is definitely worth watching. This movie offers pure entertainment. Martin Short, who played Jack, gave the viewers enough highlights and laughter. His comic relief was brilliant. All the cast were great at delivery, but Martin stood out for most viewers. He provided scenes of adventure, action, suspense, and a touch of romance. Short was the perfect man for the role of a hysterical Jack. The way he physically trashes around, no one could have done a better job. They initially wanted Jack's character to be played by an older actor, but later changed it to a younger one. Everyone brought their A game on Innerspace. The main characters delivered exceptional performances. The action was great, and the entire scene was comical. The scene wasn't an ideal everyday life, but that's what made it enjoyable. The producers did a cool job in delivering a perfect blend of characters and villains. They effortlessly pulled off a great movie. Don't doubt for a second that so much dedication went into this film. The fact that they made it seamless demonstrates their exceptional quality. Number 9. Drag for first movie selfie. Many viewers like to believe Tuck Pendleton took the first selfie in movie history. How true is this? Let's find out. In 1985, Clark Griswold takes one in National Lampoon's European Vacation. This happened 2 years before Innerspace was released. The scene where people argue is right before Tuck is shrunk and put in the syringe. He grabs a Polaroid camera and takes a selfie with one of his co-workers. It certainly wasn't the first movie selfie, but people still think it is. Many young people even believe that the 1991 Thelma and Louise had the first selfie. You can agree they are all great movies. That's all that matters. Number 8. Side characters. Although these actors were not the main cast, their roles added a new layer to this epic film. John Hora played the role of Ozzy, the absent-minded professor. Here's a fact most people don't know about. He had previously worked with director Joe on all of his movies. John was a great cinematographer, but he switched up roles in Innerspace. This time he wasn't behind the camera. Joe Dante didn't initially consider him for the role until Steven Spielberg brought it to his attention. He was skeptical about John taking up the role, and even the producer, Michael Fennell, shared the same opinion. However, Steven insisted that they try him out. John did great on his screen test and impressed Dante and Fennell. That's how he got to play Ozzy. William Schallert was considered for the role of Jack's doctor. They thought he would be perfect for the role as he had featured in the same role in The Incredible Shrinking Man in 1957. Arthur Kane also made a guest appearance in the movie. The famous bass player of New York Dolls was captured in a scene as a passenger when the cowboy is first seen on the airliner. Joe Dante also appeared in the film. He was the first employee in the Vectorscope lab attacked by the techno-terrorists. Did you know Luca Bercovici was initially in the cast of Innerspace? He was the first choice to play Ego, and his scenes were shot. Sadly, things took a different turn after the producers felt he was not a better villain for the role. He had the same height and body size as Jack. They wanted someone different, so his shots were replaced. Andrea Martin and Joe Flaherty played as the patients in the doctor's waiting room with Jack. The three actors also starred in SCTV Network 1998 and SCTV Channel in 1993. You might not remember Dick Miller. He drove the cab driver at the beginning of the film. He's one of Joe's favorite actors. They have a long history together and have collaborated on several films, including Gremlins and Small Soldiers. Famous director Ron Howard made a brief appearance at the supermarket checkout. Well, that's what people thought. That was not the director, but his father. Steven's wife, Amy Irving, wanted the role of Lydia Maxwell. She became interested the moment he showed her the script. Jodie Foster, Michelle Pfeiffer, Karen Allen, and Julia Roberts were considered to play Lydia Maxwell. Woody Allen was another character thought to be a perfect hypochondriac. Joe had a hunch he would deliver the role. Woody was also excited to read the script and take part in the project, but he couldn't. He was in an extended standing contract with Orion Pictures. He had both directed and starred in several films with the studio. His contract didn't leave room to work with other studios. Warren Beatty, Wendy Schaal, and Henry Gibson were among the others considered for Innerspace. They later worked with Joe on future projects. Number 7. Movie improvisations. You might have missed this because it's a great visual. All the cells seen outside the pod were made out of jelly. No kidding, Peter Curran, the special effects supervisor, confirmed this. Did you recognize the Warner Brothers cartoon Hiccup? Remember the scene when Jack is making his way to the mirror so Pendleton can have a look at his face? Warner improvised that sound. It was so appropriate that they chose to use it. It was hectic for Jack to switch into the cowboy role. The filmmakers didn't think he was up for the role, so they made slight changes. Before the Scrimshaw meeting, Robert Ricardo's voice was overdubbed with Jack's. During the meeting, Robert used his voice as the filmmakers needed the cowboy voice to be more convincing. After Scrimshaw and Kanker are shrunk 50%, viewers could see a few scenes where they appeared as full-size actors. How did that happen? The shots were filmed with forced perspective. Here's what they did with the car scene. The rear was actually twice as large as a standard car rear. It was also about 20 feet away. While shooting the scene, half-size hands and double-size hands were used. They also used that in the final scene with the suitcase. Viewers could see a significant case because it was twice as large. However, the hand that closes it was real and closer to the camera, in sync with the closing. They had 20 takes before they got the perfect shot. It was a genius idea. It saved the filmmakers the hassle of creating 2 separate shots after production. It also meant the shot could be completed faster. Towards the end of the movie, a computer screen displays the words "drink me" and "eat me." At first glance, Jack misidentified the sentence as being from the 1973 movie The Exorcist. How quickly he corrected himself. It was a hilarious scene as fans understood his reference to a popular scene in The Exorcist, where Reagan spurs the exact words. Do you know Reagan also referenced someone else? It is Alice in Wonderland. There is a scene where she drinks a potion to shrink herself to get through a door, then eats some cake to grow big again. Surprisingly, years later, Martin Short would go on to play the Mad Hatter in a television adaptation of the Alice books. Joe and Stephen used 2 different shopping malls for the scene where the doctor injects tuck into Jack's butt. The opening scenes, where the doctor runs in and heads for the elevator, were shot at the Northridge Mall in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, while the scene where he reaches the top and rams the syringe into Jack was filmed on the top floor of the Sherman Oaks Galleria. This mall was quite a distance. No one except Joe and Stephen understands why they needed different shots. We guess it's for cinematic effects. While motivating Jack to jump out of the back of the freezer truck, Tuck chants "Nam Myoho Renge Kyo" at him 3 times. In case you were wondering, it was intentional. It was a mantra chant used by Japanese Nichiren Buddhism. The chant was also performed by Quaid's brother Randy Quaid in the film The Last Detail. Innerspace was shot on sound stages. The exception was a 1-month location filming stint in Marin County, San Francisco, and the Galleria Mall. Here's another interesting fact. Innerspace duration was 2 hours. It was Joe's longest-running film, and there was a reason for it. He simply didn't know which scene to cut out. That was, of course, after several edits. All the scenes were incredibly captivating, and he never wanted the viewers to miss a single one. Did you know the producers had no lines for Kevin McCarthy, who played Scrimshaw, on his meat truck scene with Jack? They only realized on the day of the shoot. The script only had Tuck's voiceover. They had to improvise a hasty speech for him on a piece of paper. You might say Tuck's voiceover made his lines inaudible. The director confessed that the speech was great, but the piece of paper was lost before the lines could be copied elsewhere. It meant there was no need for Scrimshaw's lines. Wonder why they went through the stress of scribbling one. Number 6. Relationships on set. It's normal to see love brew between the cast. Long after production, some actors carry on with newfound relationships with their co-stars. Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan were no different. Their first meeting was on the set of Innerspace. They kept their relationship hidden during production and wanted to ensure they were genuinely into each other. They dated post-production, but kept their relationship private. In 1991, the Lovebirds were sure they were meant to be. Their wedding was glamorous and the talk of fans. Sadly, they parted ways after a decade of marriage. Sadly, their love story ended in a divorce. However, Innerspace remains a bond between them. Number 5. Movie release. There were high expectations for Innerspace. Warner Bros. Executives and the movie crew held hopes that Joe and Steve's partnership would work magic as it did with Gremlin in 1984. Warner thought it would be the studio's biggest movie. They even tried to make it memorable to fans by releasing it on Independence Day weekend. Sadly, it didn't meet the expectations. Some people blame the results on poor advertising and minimal publicity. Like many other movies that were placed in the box office, it flopped. Number 4. The main characters. Many actors were considered for the role of Jack Putter and Tuck Pendleton. They are actors who had their eyes on the role. Let's start with those Joe considered for the lead role. His first choice was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Fox. Arnold would play Tuck, while Michael would feature as Jack. Arnold turned down the offer because of the movie genre. He was up for comedy, but didn't want to do a mix of action sci-fi. Fox also followed suit. He only wanted to be part of the movie if Arnold was present. Joe also wanted Tom Hanks for the role of Tuck. He was ready to do everything in his power. He just wanted Tom on the project. Sadly, the actor was on the set of Dragnet. Although he tried to work with Joe, he had too much on his plate. Joe kept a spot open for Tom on the next project. He starred in the 1989 movie The Burbs. Tom also worked with Meg Ryan in 4 other movies. Rick Moranis was also on the list for Jack Putter. He never got the role. However, he ended up starring in a similar storyline 2 years later. It was the 1989 Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Another person who was asked to play Tuck was Tex Danson. He was interested but already engaged in the 1982 production of Cheers. It was outside his contract to do movies. He also committed to 3 Men and a Baby, a film released the same year as Innerspace. The roles went to Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. You'll agree that it had to be them as cast and no one else. Number 3. Copyright infringement. As far back as the 80s, the laws on copyright were in action. In the second episode of the series ALF, one of the actors referred to Jack. Still, due to legal copyright limitations, he only mentioned Jack as some movie about a guy who's shrunk and injected into someone else. His response was to communicate that such experiments were common on his home planet, Melmac. Number 2. Fiona Lewis's views about the movie. When fans and critics share their thoughts on a movie, it doesn't have as much impact as when the cast discusses it. Fiona has a few things to say about the movie, and although the reviews from others were great, she wasn't happy about the production. Fiona Lewis said she had fun making the film, but that Joe Dante was not a great actor or director. In her words, he was very much a technocrat, so the movie was all about that. Her fans thought she loved portraying her character as much as they enjoyed watching her. The gas mask worn by her and her henchman is USM-17. Fans thought she pulled it off and praised her exceptional delivery, but they were wrong. She had issues with the director. She never mentioned the details, but it was all too evident that something was up. In an unexpected turn of events, she quit acting and turned her focus to writing. She was into voice acting, though. She lent her voice to 2 animated children's shows, and after that, she went into hiding. She left the spotlight and never acted again. One would wonder if something happened to Fiona. What do you think made her quit a life she loved? As you digest that, let's see another interesting fact about Innerspace. Number 1. PG rating. Anyone who turns their remote to Innerspace can relate to the story, whether they are kids or adults. Back in the days, all kids spoke about on the school playgrounds was the Innerspace. Those who hadn't seen the movie felt like they were missing out on something vital. Yes, they were. They hadn't seen the film of the century. Innerspace was both engaging and entertaining. It's a film that the whole family can enjoy. There's no violence or inappropriate language in it. Parents don't have to feel embarrassed when watching Innerspace with their kids. It was a film for the 80s, but it transcends into a classic comic that everyone loves and resonates with. The action-adventure movie kept the audience engaged in every scene until the end. The plot was never short of ideas. It reminds you that you could still work through challenges that seem difficult. The comedy touch in the film is a way to relax after a long day of stressful routines. Innerspace didn't blow up the box office as the filmmakers intended, but fans don't believe it was a failure. It was a fun movie to watch, and it deserves to be remembered. The story never slowed down. The edit was great, and they were humorous for every scene where action was missing. Viewers who stayed through the movie confessed they grew to love the characters. There were no lengthy backstories. It was pure humor and fast-paced action. Fans say Joe deserves a shout-out for his work on Innerspace. He wasn't a known director, but his skills were evident on the project. He paid attention to his audience and captured scenes that would keep them entertained.
The green button!
Dr. Kanker? Press the green button, you fool! Hurry!
You'll never find it.
The man's a high school.
Innerspace wasn't the most sophisticated science fiction. However, they were creative about the scenes, and the audience loved it. What do you think about Innerspace? Do you think there will ever be a reunion of the film stars? How do you think they would pull it off? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.